All right, guys, welcome to TYP Corner, where what do we do here? We run through the comments on the episode. We talk about things that are trending on Twitter, not trending on Twitter, things that caught our attention on Twitter, the streets of Twitter, and then there's a Ask Us Anything thing. And it's a video, so you can see us. Hi. I just look directly in the camera, which sometimes can be weird, but I don't know. Do you like seeing my face? Maybe not.
That is weird for me, please. Can you stop that?
I know, right? Like the Zoom, people forget how weird it is to
I'm not
actually
gonna put
have
my eyes
someone.
onto you. Tell me you're not doing that
I'm
anymore.
not, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it.
Thanks. That was hella creepy. Jeez. All right.
But you know that's what AI and Facebook is trying to do with the whole thing, where they cause the eye tracking so that it's actually you're looking into the screen.
The FaceTime does it well, where FaceTime captures like the eye contact properly.
Yeah.
But it's not like looking at the camera like that.
Okay.
They're looking to the screen, but you still feel like looking at you. They have that. I don't know how to do it, but it's quite impressive.
Because looking directly into the camera is very when you're not on live TV. Anyways, all right, cool. So let's start with comments. So someone made a comment around. I think this was TikTok. So I think I had mentioned on. Yeah, I think this person watched our YouTube thing because that's the only place where we mentioned TikTok, if I remember correctly. So this is actually an interesting use of.
Really?
Yeah.
We didn't speak. Oh yeah, true. Because we didn't speak about TikTok on.
Yeah, I was.
On the podcast, did we? Let me check my phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a bit bizarre. So there was no comment on the YouTube one. Did you put a comment on the?
On the thing, yeah, because except
Are
I'm
you
very
sure?
confused. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that makes sense because we spoke about.
But the person said this is a quick intermission. I'll back you my thoughts.
No,
on the episode.
we spoke a little bit about social media on the podcast on the.
Auditing our 20s. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Okay. Anyways, so this person says, so I think I made a comment about TikTok and about how I don't like it because of short attention span, just funny videos and things like that. And this person, Anonymous, says TikTok isn't just about funny videos and all those sorts of things, I promise. You're right about the short videos, but videos can last up to 10 minutes max now, though. I think most people that are not on the app have a misconstrued notion about it. I used to have the same notion too, but I promise you it's not like that at all. Yeah, so the person was kind of like sharing about how obviously people have a perception about what TikTok is now, and it's a lot more than that. And I kind of like shared with them that, again, this is what I said, that I've heard people say that TikTok is different now, but every time I manage to get on it, it still doesn't feel different. And the videos that make it out of TikTok into the rest of the internet still have that quote unquote energy to them. I've heard people say it's like a video search engine now where you can find tutorials on anything and everything, but that doesn't quite do it for me yet for some reason.
Yeah, apparently it's also you can also have some. It's also got some e-commerce functionality.
Yeah.
I did not know about.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely behind times.
All right. And then the person says, quite recently, it's unfair to judge the app based on its videos that make it to the rest of the internet and even mainstream media. It's like judging a podcast or show based on an out of context snippet or something a co-host said. The tendency of funny videos, controversial videos, and sometimes wholesome videos going viral is so high that I'm not surprised those ones gain traction, but they are not the only content on the app. I'm sorry you didn't get the best user experience as a consumer. Maybe you should consider being a creator on the app. You might like it. Hashtag yellow pill TikTok. My beloved TikTok is goated so much that I get sad it is limited to a stereotype. They've literally cracked the social media algorithm code that the other apps had no option than to copy. Insta and YouTube copied them and came up with reels and shorts. Even Elon Musk Twitter now has a following and a For You page.
Yep, definitely TikTok avid fan, TikTok adopter right there speaking.
Yeah.
I think one thing about TikTok that makes it also great for users in terms of how they advocate for it is also the fact that it's not linked to any of the established incumbents, right? So your Facebooks, your Twitters, your YouTubes. So I think it does create that tribe-like culture a little bit. To be honest, I don't think I know anybody on TikTok who's used it and not come back to say I love it. I think once you're in, you're in.
Yeah.
I mean, for the most part, anyway. Once you're in, you're in. So those comments don't surprise me too much. But I think if you think you can help us create, give us a shout.
Yeah, true. Actually, let's.
If you think, since you're a TikTok advocate, let's do some consulting work together. You know,
You know, you know what's
you've
funny?
already started the hashtag for us, so yeah, why
Yeah.
not?
What's funny is obviously because the person commented on sort of like the main podcast, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, after we post this, I'm going to reply the comment and say, we answered your question on the TYP corner between zero. I'll put the timestamp in there. So
Oh, jeez,
we'll see how
so
it
extra.
goes. I
All right, what's
know.
next?
All right. So what's next is Ask Us Anything, which is our the other segment on the podcast where we get you guys to post whatever questions you want and get us to answer them. So one question in there is, how do you deal with trying to make an impression on a date if you can't spend much? I don't think she worries about that kind of stuff, but I just care to avoid looking like I'm not capable.
So say that again.
How do you deal with trying to make an impression on a date if you can't spend much? I don't think she worries about that kind of stuff, but I just want to avoid looking like I'm not capable.
You take this one.
You
You're an
see, you
expert
take
in
this.
this. Let's go.
You say expert, please. I'm not. I honestly, depending on what level, this is how I think about it. Depending on what level you are with this person, I think open communication is what's best. I know it's difficult because, you can say yes, be open, but you don't want to plant the seeds like you said, like you're not capable. But I think if this is someone you see yourself with like long term, you don't want to put a foot forward that you cannot maintain. So I think it's just best to be as open as you can, but obviously not come and say like, I can't. Again, actually, you say make an impression on a date. So is this someone that you're meeting with for the first time? If it is, then I would say make an impression that you can
You know, I
sustain
mean, the person says she doesn't care. I think
about
something
that
like
kind of
that.
stuff. But you want to
So,
avoid.
so definitely he knows something about her already, which means it may not be the first date.
It might not be the first date. Yeah. Then I think if it's someone that you have a relationship with, this is conversation territory. I run the risk sometimes also trying to answer and think of these conversations and scenarios up in my head and away from the person that they're about. But honestly, I think as much as possible, bring this up with the person if it's something that is really bothering you or you think it's creating an impression. Just have an open and honest conversation about it is what I think. But if I was going to give the street advice, actually, I don't actually know what the streets will tell you to do. Maybe they'll tell you to.
The sad thing is that's a very culturally dependent question as well, because
Yeah.
I mean, us Nigerians, there's things that we find that we don't find romantic that might be classed as romantic on this side of the world, right? So, I mean, when I say us Nigerian, I mean in Nigeria.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I
a
don't
lot
know
of people
about
like
African countries.
to be
So
fair, I think it's why a lot of people sort of like hail Nigerian men outside of Nigeria because I think this cultural thing you've mentioned carries through. So when you go to other places, the default things that we think are normal that should always be done is actually like above par in other
above
regions.
par.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least when it comes
Yeah.
to the dating phase, let's not go beyond that. It's not like Nigerian men are the best people in relationships, but if you're being dated and courted by a Nigerian man, a typical Nigerian man, from what I've heard, at least in East Africa and South Africa, you get certain perks that don't naturally come with other men. So I hear. Yeah. So what's your advice to this guy? I don't do next. Now make me
Oh,
be
my advice. I think honestly, it really depends on the woman.
Yeah.
This answer. I think there's only so much you can do to screw it up so much. Even if you're not that rich or wealthy, that it won't matter or it will matter. Right. So I
Yeah.
think it really depends on the woman. I think if the woman doesn't really care about those kind of things, and you make an effort, she will notice. If you can't make an effort, she would perhaps know why you can't. Of course, you can be creative with the little you have, but then the creativity depends on who she is, where you are, etc. Do your research on that. But if you can't be creative, then I don't think you have any other option.
Yeah. I think the
Because
other thing else,
creativity is your best tool out of
those
creativity
types of,
emerges from restrictions, right? So
yeah.
if you're restricted with funds, etc., you have to be creative. But then how that's received depends on the woman
Yeah.
you're working with.
Absolutely. Enough said. I don't think I have anything else to add to that. All right. Someone says birthdays should be a celebration of one's life, but why do some people hate celebrating their birthday once they start aging?
Fear of death. Boom. Next question. No, on the real though, there is I think it's called terror management theory. Let me look it up.
Yeah.
Let me look it up 1 second.
But I feel like
you talk while I look it
yeah,
up.
but I feel like the question actually already tints it a bit, because if they stopped at why do some people hate celebrating their birthdays, let's pause there, because once they start aging already lets you know why, right? It's because they're aging that they don't want to celebrate birthdays. But I think there are people out there that regardless of if they're aging or not, they've generally just never been birthday people in that way. And I think I fall into a bit of that category, but not because I don't like the fact that I'm aging. It's just that I don't necessarily I don't count in years. I don't, the milestones in my life are not based on just the year that I'm turning. Like, yes, I'm turning a new year. That's great. It's a new age. Let me finish now with all your reactions, because now people can see your reactions now. So, great.
Oh yeah, true.
So, what I mean by that is that, and funny enough, my friend doesn't like that seasons people, but I'm a seasons person pretty much. So I like to think about life in seasons and phases, and sometimes I think birthdays and things like that society tends to put a bit too much pressure on turning certain ages and things like that. And sometimes your life is really just it's almost like in the Bible sometimes, and this is not a biblical thing. In the Bible, there's chapters that bleed into each other, but because for easy reference, they tell you this is the start of chapter 5. But in reality, the story is continuing. Do you get? And so our mind sometimes feels it easier to manage certain phases of life as checkpoints that are totally obtainable. But I'm just saying sometimes it's better to think of life as in seasons. So for me, I don't put too much pressure on birthdays. I turned whatever age I like. 30 maybe is a milestone age, and so I focus a lot more on it. But like 26, 27, 28, like all those middle years, for me it's like like yes, another 365 days has come, but what season am I in and what has changed about that season in that sort of way? I think New Year's actually make a lot more sense in a kind of way than new birthdays, or like birthday years for me, is what I would say.
I think that is overly complicated.
Is it though? Why?
First of all, what are seasons that you measure your life in
Um,
that are peculiar to yourself?
Not peculiar to yourself. So, for example, you just finished your PhD. Like, you were thinking of your life in that season, as opposed to a certain year, you're going to turn a certain age. You get
Okay, but no, wait, no.
Okay.
But the PhD example is very, very finite. What of a season that has no finite stop in your mind?
Yeah, it just makes you a bit more reflective about that, right? So, for example, I moved.
So what season are you in now?
What season am I in now? Season of new relationships and
No, but see, that means you're looking at it based on the different games you're playing, right? Relationships, career,
no,
etc.
some games take center stage because they like. I think it's easier to mark the start of a season than the end of a season. Ends are you can't really do so much about that, but it's like identifying starts of seasons and just being conscious of that. For me, again, this is what works for me. It's not like I don't celebrate birthdays. I was in your house when people celebrated, and but that was even not the day itself. So for me, I just think maybe this for me is a response to whenever people put so much pressure on birthdays as certain things. This is my answer to that, but it's not like I wouldn't still celebrate a birthday is what I would say. Gosh, I'm sweating. All right, because people can see me now. I can't go. I can't escape. I can't escape it. But yeah, you were looking up something about the birthday thingy.
Oh yeah, terror management theory. It's a dual defense model that explains how people protect themselves against concerns about death, in bracket mortality salience. So yeah, I knew that reminded me of this theory in psychology called terror management theory, and it's just as I said, different techniques which we humans try to protect ourselves and how we think about death in that sense. So yeah, I mean that's one example because he or she made reference to
Aging.
an older person.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. That I think
as
the
we're getting older.
Yeah, because I think the older you are, the more likely it is that, you know, the conversation around death, it becomes a thing, and maybe
Yeah,
birthdays are
but also
remembered.
birthdays become less significant. Number one, the older you get, because you've had just more, and then the more
Yeah.
you have of something, less unique it is. Number two, the older you get, the more responsibilities you have in your life. So, which probably means that with more responsibilities, then likely you're less likely to bother about yourself as much.
Mm.
So that's number two. Actually, no, that's number three. Number four could be that with more birthdays you've had, you probably had much more disappointments in your birthdays,
Mm-mm.
or you've had birthdays styles or birthdays types that have become more stamped. So,
Mm.
for example, if you're somebody who did not celebrate much in the last four birthdays, you're more likely to not celebrate the next one.
Mm.
So, just as you age, or as you age as well, your birthdays are likely to be follow a similar pattern, I guess,
Mm.
across time. So, these are my four perhaps potential reasons why that might be the case.
Yeah. Cool. All right, great. Um, Up to the next one, which leads us to the Twitter section.
What's happening in the world?
Looking at which one I want to talk about. Let's see. The one who did the Trevor Noah one. So Trevor Noah was talking about difference in privileges, but that involves playing a video. Um, and it's a long video. It's like 2 minutes or something long, so maybe not. Um, oh, I like this one. Well, it's another video as well. I want to find one that isn't a video, but maybe the video one is nice because then it's great. Um, let's play a very Nigeria focused one. So this one was from Peter Adero Peter side. He's a Nigerian politician or no banker, or yeah, he started his own banker. Essentially, he was talking about how easy it is for a young person to succeed in Nigeria today, particularly if you don't have connections. And he was trying to compare it to, like, he said something a bit profound about the way systems are set up right now that make it difficult for a young person to really break out as people did in that day, right? So let me just play the video.
Our society is rigged against young people.
Right.
So they've got to be very careful in this environment. If you look at it, most things rules have been put in place, measures have been put in place to make it very difficult for young people to succeed. When I was young, it was not like that. It's almost as if some Nigerians, as they got older, kept on redefining, pulling the rug along with themselves. And the environment that enabled them to come in and succeed, they withdrew it. Right. So that today's young people cannot repeat what they did. I am sad that today, no young Nigerian at age 33 can begin a bank the way I did. Because the rules won't even let him. You understand me?
Yeah.
If you have 10 years experience and you come for a banking license, they'll throw you out. So the point I'm making is that I would like young people, and that's why you find that young people today in Nigeria are concentrated in the creative arts, in music, in Nollywood. These are the areas where the rules have not been rigged against them.
Yeah.
You see, it's difficult for a 78-year-old man to be better than a 22-year-old at hip-hop music. so they're going to the areas where they're allowed to compete
Flourish.
and excel. Because if they want to get land to build a factory, they will be rigged out of it in their state or rigged out of it by somebody else, by some old man. So they are moving naturally into the activities where they can compete. So the first thing is that they have to understand their abilities and pick an event that they have a fighting chance to compete and succeed.
I mean, so its premise is quite clear, evidently. The rules of engagement, barriers to entry for whether entrepreneurship, whether it's starting jobs in certain areas, it's very hard. Unemployment is hard, pretty much. And of course, the example he gave about creative arts being the main focus of young Nigerians because the barriers to entries are low, or the rules have not been rigged against them, in his words. That makes sense. But I think it's one piece of a system problem. I mean, yeah, he's right in sense of there are barriers to entry that make entering certain enterprise is difficult, whether it's an enterprise as an employee or as an entrepreneur in whatever industry you're going to. I get that. Also, there's just also not a structure to get into those places if you're competent enough. So, for example, even if you have the the right, I don't know, the right CV, for example, to get into a correct job that you can earn. So you know that your CV has made you earn. You probably won't get the job if you don't know somebody, right? In some industries, it's possible that you get it because you're competent. In some, you might need to know somebody. But I think the same works even the creative arts that they mentioned. Even though everybody going to creative arts, we still carry that same nepotism, perhaps, or those same informal structures into there. Because if you're going into radio, you probably have to know some kind of DJ or some kind of person to play a song on radio. If you're going into um, I don't know what else is there. I think, to be fair, I think the only creative art space whereby there are no barriers to entry is just social media, being an influencer or a skip maker. Because all you just got to do is put up your mic, your phone, and get working, and then your creative production does the work for you, right?
Even in that, I think there's some things that go on beneath the scene for some of these things sometimes. Like things that trend sometimes, there are groups of friends that come together to try and beat the algorithm to make things, at least initially, break through the
Yeah,
noise. Yeah.
probably, but I mean, for the most part, still, it's. I think the
It's
reward
still
is still
equitable.
virtually
Yeah.
there,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
for social
Yeah.
media. But I think for other endeavors, whether it's acting, whether it's even artistry, like singing, you still need to have connections that you may need in getting a normal job,
Yeah.
in making as an artist. I don't mean the same connection. I just mean the same ideology persists or rather permeates across different industries.
Yeah.
But its principle is correct on a system view. That's one problem, but it's one out of many that are connected.
All right.
And perhaps it's not as deep as the comments in that person's caption suggests.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough.
Rather, it's not revelatory. That's why it is deep, but not revelatory.
As well. Okay. Fair
As
enough. Fair
yeah,
enough. All right. Next one. Sleeping in your 20s. This person says it. 8 hours of sleep in your
guy. If you want,
20s.
if you want to sleep, sleep, man.
Let me read the thing finish now. 8 hours in your 20s. It's either you're dead or your dreams are. How can you be sleeping one third of your life? How can you be spending one third of your life sleeping? What will you do when you're old and weak? There's time for everything, please. Cut down on your sleep if you want your dreams to become a reality. I'll hustle porn. Let's go now.
Nothing to say about this. Nothing much to say about this because I think anybody watches the podcast, listens to the podcasts, who knows myself, knows our response to this. My response to this anyway is very brief. All right, fine.
Yeah.
If this is what you need to hear to put a message across to be provocative or to get people to click like, fine, do it. If this is what you need to say to people to get them to get up and chase something, fine, do it. But we all know that's a very black and white statement that is just meant to push buttons and sound, as you said, as hustle porn. Essentially, is a lot bigger than that. Like, for example, my 20s was I wasn't thinking about 8 hours, 5 hours, whatever sleep, right? Because my life was not the life of somebody who's going to the bank every day,
Yeah.
right? Did my dream of PhD come true? Yes, but I was still getting good sleep. I mean, maybe not every night. For example, maybe there's some nights that you stay up very, very late. But the point is that everyone has so much. The context is different for everybody.
Yeah.
First of all, secondly, the way we also make trade-offs with health as the only not the only, but as one of the strongest acceptable ways
To be
to
successful.
to be
Yeah.
successful is a bit worrying. I think the message can be passed without almost saying it as if anybody who is sleeping as a human being should is lagging behind. Because even all of us that did all-nighters, we've learned now that our brains never really worked effectively that way. Because sleep is so important for the brain. Not for now, but for the audio he's talking about, is there. But also some people's context, you also can't sleep 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
I mean, the guys who built Apple, they were not sleeping 8 hours a day. He's right. Elon Musk doesn't sleep 8 hours a day. He's right in that point. But again, are we all going to be those people? It's up to you. If your dreams are that big, then sacrifice. If your dreams are not that big, then it's all a trade-off, right? It's depending on the person. So
yeah, that's the thing. I think obviously, like, we can't judge every tweet by, and everybody has their intentions, but I think also this doesn't also just like occur in hustle like porn. It also occurs actually on the spiritual side as well. You know, some people would tell you, like, you know, you should spend way more hours like praying and doing all those things, like why are you sleeping, like when battles come and things like that. So there's also that. Yeah, there's also
You know what's mad about that story is that I can't remember where it was, but
I think the one time where somebody was like, yeah, we have to pray for 2 weeks straight, like in the night. I said, why in the night? No, like just tell me, like, why in the night? No, just explain to me, like, no, seriously, why in the night? What is this night? Because even biblical references, maybe you tell me, like,
no. So they are sort of like precedents, or, you know, stories and I guess instructions for nighttime.
Tell me.
So they're like 3 or 4 watches of the night, and a lot of times when certain breakthroughs happen, you know, again, it's
tell
not
me
it's
the example, the instruction in the Bible.
Okay, when what they call it, Jesus would always wake up early at dawn, to sort of like go to pray, and what that was usually like the 4th watch of the night is 3 a.m. Just, you know, the way the Jewish people divide their hours, people used to start praying, you know, into the watch of the night. When Peter and Paul, I think, were in jail and whatnot, and the church was praying for them, they were praying overnight, right, for them. So I'm not going to be one here to say, oh, you can pray anytime. Like, I think sometimes at specific hours.
Yeah, but so the context.
What's the question?
The examples you've given, right?
Yeah.
That is like what you call, well, what I would assume prayers with purpose. So in the biblical context, right? Sorry.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
so I'm
Exactly.
not inferring that everything has the purpose.
Yeah.
But what I'm referring is the example of Paul and Silas, the example of Jesus Christ, the example of, I don't know who else was the example that was there. My point is there's also equal amount of
For sure.
examples in the Bible where people were praying without any reference to time, where it was even, you couldn't guess that it was even daytime.
Yeah.
Right.
So is your issue with the person saying, like, and is the person only saying, like, we have to pray and it has to be at night, or
it is the unexplainable
how to who, based on what?
It's unexplainable assumption that time of the day is the righteous time and the right time to carry out prayers.
Yeah. So I'm not there. There's some things that are not.
I think here's how I say it. When you're also fasting, right? I think fasting is not just to not eat food; it's to avoid being a slave to what is comfortable. Mm-hmm. Right? That's the nice essence of fasting, right? And I think that links a little bit to some of the reasons why that nighttime prayer is important, because naturally you want to sleep, right? Naturally, everybody's moving daytime, naturally, but the nighttime is when you're saying to God, this is the silent hour, it's me and you, and hear my cries.
Yeah. So what I would say is that it's not a law. We've almost done this as a Bible study, but it's not a law. It's not a do
It
or
is not a
don't do.
law. That's my point.
But there's a spirit behind. There's a spirit behind it, and what I didn't want to happen was to discredit the spirits behind.
No, we're not
The-
discrediting
exactly.
the spirit behind
Yeah.
it, but
Uh-huh.
I guess my other point is, and maybe this is the case of my miseducation or my lack of education, and if anybody in the comments to educate me, I will absolutely love that. But the references that are made, they are to the Bible, is just copied, not the whys are not unpacked when people explain to me, oh, but they also did this in the Bible.
Yeah.
But nobody's telling me the whys.
Yeah. But I think what I'll just wrap this up with is that there are whys beyond some people's superficial understandings. Yeah.
They probably are.
Yeah.
Right. They probably are. And no,
They are. They definitely
they are wise.
They are. Exactly.
Give one another, but they are wise.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's like this is actually raise it a level above. I think sometimes, and someone was telling me this recently as well. Like sometimes when you have certain questions, I think it's fair to have questions about certain things. I think it's what happens in the response to those questions that can sometimes lead to an unnecessary thing. Like for example, if you ask this person about why the night and they didn't give anything specifically to you at that point in time, and basically maybe almost wanted to cast aspersions on you asking that kind of question as an issue, right? That doesn't help anybody's case because you don't come away from that experience knowing why. And even if the person doesn't know why, it's usually better to say that you don't know and then discover the reasons together than, I guess, for both parties to become defensive in that sort of way. So
But it's very hard to say. It's very hard to say you don't know. Even me, honestly, let me just say it now. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll just say that now and end
Exactly.
there. I don't know.
So what I try to do now is just to make this an educative moment for everyone who's listening and watching apparently at the moment is, so there are three traditional watches in the night according to Jewish culture. The first watch is between, I'm reading this off, the first watch is between 6 p.m. and 10 p.m. The second watch is between 10 and 2 a.m. And the third watch is between 2 and 6 a.m. So they're divided into 4 hours. And these watches usually have symbolic importance, right? You can,
This is by Jewish culture, though.
yeah, by Jewish culture, yeah. They usually have symbolic and cultural importance, including prayer, meditation, guarding against evil things happening.
Yeah,
and things
but
like
this
that.
is by Jewish culture.
Yeah, but then the Christianity is based off of
yes, but you know that Judaism is very, very cultural. Almost how do I say it? Lots of practices from Jews has a strong sense of culture versus, no, I'm not gonna say that. How do I say this to make sense? If you've watched any Jewish program, right, you understand, as you said, the culture is very important
Yeah.
to their practices, right, to the faith, and it's also linked,
Yeah.
right? But in this argument, for me, it's a faith question that we are looking through a cultural lens. We're answering through a cultural lens.
Yeah.
Which is because a faith question for me involves interrogating the essence of the spiritual and the essence of how your actions connect to the spiritual. The culture for me is then interrogating the way of life of the people who practice that spiritual.
So what I'm going to say here is that, like, what you said is absolutely right. And it's also the way people have classified how people interpret scripture. You either read it with tradition, you read it sort of like, I think there's like 3 ways to read the Bible. Like, you read it literally how it is, take everything as it says. There's reading it with tradition, so considering culture and tradition at the time and then interpreting it out of it. And then I think there's reading it with like church history in one kind of way. So what I would say is that they're not disconnected, and I think the Bible is not that kind of book, and the things that it says are not the things that you just take and run everything with it. Because if not, we wouldn't be wearing clothes with different materials
Of
because
course.
all of those sorts of things. So what I would say is that when it comes to, like, you're right that when it comes to Watches of the Night, that was definitely more associated with the cultural practice of like Jews and things like that. But again, when we talked about it earlier, the spirit of it goes beyond just Watches of the Night and all of this thing. Like you said, when it comes to fasting as well, it's not just about abstaining for food, it's about not being mastered by certain things and, you know, sacrificing comfort and stuff like that. So yeah, how did we get here? What were we talking? Actually, really, we're talking about 8 hours of sleep. We're talking about hustle culture, 8 hours of sleep and not sleeping, and I brought in like the prayer side, and then you remembered your story, and then we went in this direction.
Yeah, that was the rabbit hole. But
Anyways.
before we just move on, from I honestly would like to learn about this, and anybody who has an answer, please let me know, because I don't know.
Yeah.
I probably made some discipline assumptions, could be wrong, but anybody who has an answer, let me know. I'm curious to learn.
Absolutely. All right. I don't want to do this one, so Drew, I'll let you pick the last one. Pick one from what's in there.
Let's just go for one more. So one more. Let's look at what the hell is prisoner's dilemma.
I put the skull emoji there because it's
Okay,
more
no,
funny
we're not
thing.
doing that one. Clearly. Let's look at I
Yeah. it is
love you.
in a
No, okay. Let's look at financial literacy.
no.
Okay. Let's look at antinatalists.
It's a bit complicated, but I guess so.
Okay. This was going on right now. This was going on right now.
No, it's because I give us a choice. Like,
Okay,
if
let's
we
look
didn't have
at
a
this
choice.
final one. Infantilization of adults.
We talked about this briefly, but
Okay.
but no, we can do it.
Pepperdam
We can do it.
mentality. What is this one? Pepperdam mentality.
I don't think this is the most effective way to do this, but yeah. So Pepperdam is okay, let's do this. Let's do this one. It's a good one. I'll summarize it for you. So
Thanks.
someone tweeted earlier that if you leave Nigeria, you become a lot more content. That desire to be filthy rich is due to being surrounded by abject poverty and a system that doesn't work. When you move and experience a working system, even as an average earner, you relax and be content. So the general, perspective is something that you've mentioned briefly before, but the person also talked about apparently someone from UK said they have left the chat. So maybe they're still preparing themselves in UK. But anyway, somebody then responds that the reason I love this thread so much is that I was stuck in the same Nigerian mindset until I had the opportunity to live elsewhere and realized that true wealth is about living in a functional community and not individual accomplishments in a dysfunctional place. That is what the I better pass my neighbor or pepper them mentality is about. Living in a community with high standards lifts you and improves your thinking about life in general. What we think is religiosity in Nigeria is a coping mechanism when there's so much uncertainty. Living in a space with a degree of certainty makes you focus more on your abilities and less on the probabilities or even improbabilities. You improve your capabilities. I had to leave eventually when I realized that I was much more functional elsewhere without needing to amass wealth first. Being functional helped us build better and create wealth faster. This is why developed countries are far ahead, and the gap continues to widen. Yeah. So for me, just to bring this personal, I think there is, if you have the opportunity to, if you're blessed to be able to, and if it's something that you desire to, and if something is accessible, I think not jackpotting to like UK and all of that, that's nice, but actually just stepping away, there's something about stepping away from where you've always like spent a lot of time, and it just gives you a different perspective. I think for me, I've never necessarily, I didn't grow up in an environment where being stinkily rich or trying to amass that amount of wealth was something that I was chasing, right? But I also still had a perspective that, like, I don't know, I had new way to look at the world once I was able to leave Nigeria, just to Ghana here, next door here, not too far away. But just being in that environment away from where I had grown up as home helped me see a bit more around, okay, like there's actually more options behind what's currently visible. So I think it's more about exposure. And sometimes you don't need to leave somewhere to be fully exposed, but the things that you consume and the things that you expose yourself to, even visually and through YouTube or whatever, can get you thinking a separate kind of way, because you can get stuck in thinking there's only one direction. We've talked about this thing many times where it's like, right now, so many people are doing different things that they couldn't have thought about doing if they were living traditional lives. Like, we only knew doctor, engineer, lawyer, all of those sorts of things, but now people are doing so many different kinds of things, just because of exposure you get. So, but connecting it back to this better past my neighbor, I think, definitely being stuck in a certain environment can cause you to play the only game that environment outlines as the rules. And sometimes you can play a different game, but you don't know to play a different game if you don't like see something else, which is why people encourage people to travel, pretty much.
Yeah, and honestly, I think the person I can't remember what the handle is.
Big
Asemota. I think
Chief Asemota, quite
they,
popular on
they,
Twitter.
they put it quite nicely. It is an academic explanation of some sort, that you find in texts around sociology. So nothing there, perhaps. I mean, I'll give him credit. Have credit, of course, as well. But it is an academic understanding of what they said in essence. For the other area of how this manifests in traveling to the UK, I think you can even still go to certain countries and still carry this still. First of all, it depends on where you are. Yes, it might reduce, but you can still go to certain countries and carry this still. You can go to spaces here and still feel this way. Depending on where you are, you can transfer that from your community environment to your professional life. Right. So a lot of it, even though we say society environment does, some of it is still individual choice and responsibility as well. There's also people in these same spaces in Nigeria who don't have this mindset.
Yeah, absolutely.
We may not hear about them because they have that mindset, ironically. But I think that is true, but it doesn't absorb the individual responsibility in the spaces of Nigeria
Yeah,
and here.
absolutely. Well said. Thank you, folks, and catch you on the next one.
Bye, everybody.